Alright, so we're going to go through two examples of how to find a missing variable, a value for a variable, given angle relationships with parallel lines and transversals. In this first example, they tell us that L is parallel to M, and they want us to find the value of each missing variable. So in this case, there's only one missing variable, that's X. So we need to ask ourselves, well, what's the information that they've given us, and what does that tell us about angle relationships? So they've told us that this angle right here is 58, and then this angle right here is 5x minus 2 degrees. So they're giving us the little degree symbol there. So what is the relationship between this angle here, 58, and this angle here, 5x minus 2? And by that I mean, are they alternate interior, consecutive interior, corresponding? What are they? Well, let's look at the transversal. There's our transversal. The angles are both on the right side of the transversal, so that means they're either going to be corresponding or consecutive angles. They're consecutive if they're both on the inside of the parallel lines or on the outside. They're corresponding if they're both either above or below each line. 58 is above line L, and 5x minus 2 is above line M. That makes them corresponding. So we're going to say that these are corresponding angles. And then what do we know about corresponding angles? Corresponding angles are congruent. So if I know that angles are congruent, then we know that their measures are equal by the definition of congruence. So we're going to set these two equal. So we can say 58 equals 5x minus 2. Because these angles here and here are corresponding, so they're congruent, so their angle measures are equal. So now we're just solving an equation. We're going to add 2, 60 equals 5x, divide by 5, divide by 5 on both sides, x equals 12. And if we want to plug it back in and check, just plug in 12 there, and you get 5 times 12 minus 2. That's 60 minus 2, which is 58, and we want those to be congruent, so they're both 58. Excellent. All right, for this one, let's look at where these angles are. So we have 16x plus 22 is here, and then 134 is down here. So if this is our transversal, these angles are on, one is to the right of the transversal and one is to the left. So these are going to be alternate. In our previous example, when they were both on the same side, they were either corresponding or consecutive. When they're on opposite sides of the transversal, they're alternate. They're going to either be interior or exterior, and all depends on where they are according to the parallel lines. So interior to the parallel lines would be in between them. These angles are not interior, these angles are outside. So we're going to say these are alternate exterior angles. And now we just have to remember, well, what's the relationship between alternate exterior angles? And these are congruent. So we can do the similar method in this one. We'll take 16x plus 22, and it's got to be congruent to 134, so that means they're going to be equal. And we'll solve for x. So we have 16x equals 112. Let's divide 112 by 16. X equals 7, and that's what they wanted us to find. They wanted us to find the missing variable, and they told us that L and M are parallel. That's why we're allowed to use this relationship between alternate and exterior angles. And if we wanted to check ourselves, just plug in 7 for x, so 16 times 7 plus 22, and make sure that that gives us 134, and it does. So x equals 7. All right, for our last example, we'll use this picture. And I'm not going to tell you in words that M and N are parallel, but looking at the picture, can you tell whether or not lines M and N are actually parallel? We can. Hopefully you identified that they have these additional little arrows on here. That means that line M is parallel to line N. So even if the picture they don't look like they're parallel, if they have those little markers, those arrowheads, that means that they're parallel. And then it has a transversal t. So we're going to use this information to find the value of x. So we have 5x here, talking about this angle, and then 15x minus 20 degrees is talking about this angle here. So we need to determine, well, what is the relationship between those two angles? Are they congruent? Are they supplementary? Are they consecutive? Are they interior, exterior? What are they? Well, the transversal t is here, and these angles are both to the left of it, so they're on the same side. So if they're on the same side, they're not going to be alternate anything. They're either going to be consecutive or corresponding. In this case, since they're on the interior of the parallel lines, they're considered consecutive interior angles. Do you remember what consecutive interior angles measure? They're not going to be congruent, they're actually going to be supplementary. So consecutive interior angles add to 180. So how we will write it will look like this. We'll say 5x plus 15x minus 20 equals 180. So unlike the previous examples where they were congruent and we set them equal to each other, that's because those angles were congruent. In this case, the angles are supplementary, so we're going to add them to equal 180. Now that we've set that up, we can solve. We can combine like terms. We get 20x minus 20 equals 180. Add 20 to both sides. You get 200, divide that by 20, and x equals 10. So here was an example where the angles weren't necessarily equal to each other, they were supplementary, so we would say that they add to 180.